This video is a little different. It's comic related, but it's also parenting related. So, buckle in. Hey there, this is Perch. I talk about it from time to time. I don't try and hide the fact. I've got two young daughters. Had kids later in life. Have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and have done my best to kind of get them into comics and introduced to comics. I think the key there is to let them go where their interest lies. So I wish they were reading Burns' Fantastic Four run right now, the 9-year-old at least, but she is not. She likes Dogman. She likes what's weird is she likes Scott Snyder's Justice League a lot. So there's things that they listen to and they like. The younger one is kind of just entering into comics. So, but there's interest there, and the trick is to just figure out what they like and then supply it in a lot of cases for comics. But I want to talk about kind of a very subtle, but I think profound difference in how we're raising our kids, and in particular, how we're raising our girl kids, our girls, as a society. And I want to kind of lay out the groundwork here because this my comments may get attacked on a couple different fronts. So I want to kind of lay out some basic platforms. Number one, I do believe that for quite some time, girls were kind of artificially pushed into fields that were for them. Girls would be pushed into baking, or girls would be pushed into hospitality, or girls were kind of subtly told to stay away from science. And I witnessed, and not in the distant past. I think even recently. I think I have my older daughter has always been very, very interested in inventing and construction and Legos and science and those kinds of things. It's just there was not. I never had to push her into STEM or any of that. There's just a natural she looks at the ground and there's some Barbie dolls or or Transformers or action figures or Legos. She's going to go for the Legos 100% of the time, every time. And at school, she had a terrible teacher one year, and the teacher goes, she was entering the science fair, and it was kind of it was grade one, first grade at that point. And so they kind of don't really push the kids to enter the science fair until grade three, but anybody's allowed to a grade one. And apparently my daughter started a ruckus in the first grade classroom because she's like, I'm entering the science fair. And then a bunch of her friends and other kids are like, yeah, me too, me too, me too. And the teacher, I think, didn't really want to put up with any of this crap for first grade. I think it was a nuisance to her to have to do it at all. But then I got I got met the teacher, kind of intersected with the teacher one day at school, and she's like, oh, your daughter kind of pressured other kids to go into the science fair. And I go, oh, that's great. I mean, I don't know, what are you supposed to say that? I'm picturing my daughter like kind of leaning against the locker, kind of cracking her knuckles, like, are you going to do science or am I going to have to pound you? And she's like, well, I don't really think it's right for her to do, to be so, doing this science stuff. I think there's other activities that are more appropriate for her. And I'm like, I'm slow on the uptake with these things. I'm like, okay, like, what are we talking, like reading? What are we talking about here? And she's like, I mean, science isn't really a girl's thing. And I remember going, yikes, just what? And it was one of those moments that, you read about from time to time, you see people do, and I always believe these stories are false, and I think, frankly, they usually are. When they're set online, they're used to prove another point. I don't have another point to prove with this story, so, it is what it is. But I'm like, and I do not have the amazing, like, I stood up on the desk and I said, no, we shall have girls in science. I didn't have anything. I was just like, all right, well, cool. She's going to do the science fair because she wants to. And I think that's cool. Are you saying, can she not do the science fair in your class? And then she's like, well, no, of course she can. I'm not saying she can't. Okay, then cool. Let me know how I can help. And I walk away. I didn't have the big triumphant moment that would make for a good BuzzFeed story. It is what it is. What's the point of that? So But it strikes me, so these attitudes do exist. They are out there, this kind of weird manipulation of kids. So I think that is true that that happens. And I also think that it's true that there was been a, not a stigma, but there's been a kind of subtle, um, ongoing pressure that impacts girls and that hurts them in later life, where they have less access to technology and to code and to other things that actually can help them. So I think that has existed. Now, what I also think is true, and this is probably where I deviate a lot from kind of the big STEM push and other things, is I think you shouldn't force the kids into any of this. I think if the kids have a natural interest, then you get out of the way and you let that interest, proceed. And if the kids do not have an interest, you get out of the way and figure out what they're interested in. I'm just very opposed, and I've always been very opposed to this idea of kind of artificial manipulation of student interest. They're going to like it, they're going to not like it, and if you steer toward what they like, you're more likely to have a long lasting interest from the kids. And if you try and pressure them into something, it's going to create a resentment over time. That's just my belief. So all this said, how does this, where was I going with this? It's that I think that there's this pressure with girls to empower them. And I think that on one hand, that's good. Well, not on one hand, it is good. It's good to basically say, hey, you can, you should do what you like. We want to get things out of your way that if you have an interest, we want you to, keep that interest and run with it. But at the same time, it goes back to what I said. I don't think you should falsely kind of try and generate that interest where it's not there. And so the statement I hear a lot is this: it's girls should be able to do anything they want to. And I think that's a very dangerous statement. I think that's the wrong statement. I think the right statement is girls should be able to be whatever they want. I think that sends the right message. It's sending a message of certainly empowerment, but more importantly, it's sending a message of, if there's things that are preventing girls from doing something, then we need to, get those obstacles out of their way. Saying girls should be able to do anything they want it's not, it sounds like the same thing, but there's a subtle and very critical difference. And that difference is, we live still with laws, and we live with the need to connect socially with each other and interact as a community and other things. And in reality, you can't do everything you want. I can't do everything I want as a human, not as a man. As a human being, you can't just do whatever you want. You still have to interact, and you still have to participate in our society, and you still have to contribute. You can't just kind of run amok. And I think when you tell girls the message of you can do anything you want, I think that you're giving them not permission, but you're giving them this idea that, go nuts. Don't need to worry about the responsibility of learning things, of growing, of teaching yourself. You can just do anything you want. Do you want to be a scientist? Great, you can just do it. You don't need to study. You don't need to work for it. You don't need to learn. You can just do it. Do you want to, do you need to kind of be a valuable part of a community? Can you, participate with others? Yeah, you don't need, screw it. Just do it. Just do whatever you want. You don't need to invest any time to make each other stronger. And I think that, I watch parents who are really hammering the, um, do whatever you want message to their girls, and they're creating rotten children. That message isn't a good one for kids. And I see parents who are doing kind of what I'm doing, which is you can be anything you want, and you get healthy, confident, well-adjusted, normal kids. And so I think that's the message I'm trying to convey here today. It sounds very similar, but it is astronomically different in how it plays out with people. And I think you can go with a lot of different kids and how they're getting raised, and this applies to boys as well. Imagine going to young boys and say, you can do whatever you want, boys, go crazy. People would immediately pick up on the fact that is a bad message to send to boys. I mean, you'd see like the Lord of the Flies. The next scene would be just a trash on fire, and kids running around naked with paint. on them. That would be the result. So you don't do whatever you want. Be whatever you want. And I think that goes for comics. I'll try and desperately tie back to comics. It's figure out what your kids' interests are, figure out what your customers' interests are, figure out what your people's interests are, and then get out of the way and supply it. Give them what they want. Let them be what they want, not do whatever they want. It's subtle but simple. You making sense? I don't know. Either this message was like, oh, what a profound message, or you're like, I do not believe I wasted the last 10 minutes on this crap. Which one are you? Leave me a comment below. Would love to hear from you. Like, subscribe, tell a friend, all that jazz. Thank you for listening on my little speech there about child raising. Why not? Thanks.